Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Welcome back to the show, Kris.
Thank you for having me on.
Kris, the BC NDP government claims to have a $1.5 billion surplus. Other sources are saying it's a lot higher than that. But they say we're going to use this money for something, but they won't tell us. Would it be better off if BC did something like increase your personal provincial tax exemption? Wouldn't that be a better use of that money?
Yes, it would. They could either reduce our taxes here in BC, or they could start actually attacking the debt. Now, a lot of folks, and rightly so, give them credit for not having an operating debt. And I want to say that's a good thing. On behalf of the CTF, it's a good thing to not have an operating debt. We don't care which party's in power, you're going to get praise from that. But the actual debt is going up and up and up at an alarming rate. Anybody can go to our website and look at the debt clock for British Columbia, and it's going up every second of every day. That's the full debt. So if they start plowing a whole bunch of money into what they often refer to as capital infrastructure or capital spending, guess what? That will eventually need to be paid by somebody. And that's going to be us. It's going to be our children and grandchildren on top of interest. So they got to really watch that. And so if they have a surplus, they could either put it towards the debt or they could give us some tax relief. We also need to keep in mind that whenever the government says they have a surplus, or when they talk about the money that they're taking in, every nickel of it is our money. It's not like they're generating it magically somehow. They're taking it from us and from our employers. And the amount of money they're taking from employers is concerning as well. So while we're happy to see an audited update to the books, that's important, we do want to see more accountability here, and we want to see some relief.
Is this surplus being generated because the government is double dipping right now? They're collecting medical services premiums from regular folks, and they're also collecting medical services tax from employers.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, when they first announced the employer health tax, if you go back and look at their budget documents, almost to the dollar, the amount of surplus they were forecasting was the amount they were double dipping by for the healthcare taxes. So, for anybody that isn't aware yet, the medical services premium is paid for by individuals or their employers who choose to do so. Some people get their employers to pay their MSP, which is nice for them. So the MSP still exists. It's at 50% strength of what it was. And the employer health tax is now in play. So that means, to give you an example of an employer, say, who was already paying the MSP for his or her employees, they're now paying the MSP, the employer health tax, and because this new one is applied to municipalities, that job creator, that business, is paying increased property taxes because the municipality is getting jacked up on it, and increased property taxes if they own a home. So in some ways, this new employer health tax is taxing people 4 ways from Sunday. So that is one of the reasons why they have a surplus.
Any discussion of, say, dropping the carbon tax or reducing provincial sales taxes?
This is also something that they need to account for. So if you take a look at the carbon tax, and you really need to dig for it nowadays, before, under the BC Liberals, even though we didn't like it, and it wasn't actually revenue neutral, at least it was technically accounted for quite obviously in the budget. You could find it easily. It was on a great big table, and you could see how they were trying to make it balance out to zero, make it appear revenue neutral. Now, you need to dig and dig and dig through the budget document. At the end of the day, last time I checked, they were taking about $1.4 billion in with the BC carbon tax. Now, keep in mind that that's mostly just from fuel sales. It's more difficult to calculate for a family, for example, how much more they're paying in the carbon tax because of increased grocery costs or increased item costs and supplies, because, of course, all of that is produced and trucked to us using oil and gas, which is carbon tax in BC. So they're taking around, last time I was able to see, about $1.4 billion in per year, and they're spending it on whatever now. Initially, they used to try to account for it by stuffing a bunch of random tax credits inside of it, but now they're just spending it. Part of it, they say, is going to this Clean BC program scheme, which is just under $1 billion over 4 years, and who knows what they're spending the rest of it on. They're frankly just using it as an income stream and calling it a carbon tax.
BC's attitude towards pipelines is costing the provincial economy, because Stuart Muir, one of our frequent sources, just reported from Saskatoon from the Pacific Northwest Economic Regional Conference that BC is considered to be a regime that is unfriendly to business and business development. And one of the spin-offs of that is Alberta and Alaska are talking about a railway to ship Alberta crude through Valdez, Alaska, so they don't have to worry about the BC government. And, of course, that means jobs lost in BC. Is that something government should be aware of?
Government definitely needs to be aware of it for many reasons. Number one, and the most obvious, is to anybody who's awake and looking around, oil and gas are the lifeblood of our modern world. Everything surrounding us right now. If you're sitting in your car listening to this, if you're working out of the gym listening to this on your podcast, your phone, the treadmill you're standing on, the car you're driving, the living room you're sitting in, was produced and shipped to you using oil and gas. We are because of it. Then further, if you take that further and take a look at something like the jobs involved here, the jobs involved here in the oil and gas sector typically pay more than $100,000 per year, including those for skilled tradespeople and engineers, including scientists, geoscientists. Then you're getting up into sometimes $200,000. That's the difference between actually owning a home and not. That's the difference between being able to afford to put your child in university and not. So these are game-changing jobs. So there's that. Then keep in mind the amount of income tax that those high-earning people would be paying into the public purse. It's a staggering amount of money. Last time we did the Parliamentary Budget Officer numbers, for the past 10 years, so between 2013 and projected to 2023, the federal government alone is going to be losing $13 billion just in federal taxes because of our lack of pipeline capacity. Then you take it the further step, the last step, we actually own now the Trans Mountain Pipeline as federal taxpayers. We own the thing. And one portion of the provincial government is trying to strangle it. So it's no wonder that Mr. Muir is hearing that at the conference he's at. His research is impeccable. I encourage anybody to follow the work that he does at Resource Works. And yeah, the message has been sent throughout the business and the natural resources community to avoid British Columbia. And we say that because British Columbia can't make up its mind. It will ink deals to ship liquefied natural gas, LNG, overseas, which is a good thing. It's a good thing for BC and it's a good thing for the world. But in the next breath, they'll turn around and declare war on something like liquefied natural gas and our natural resources in the Clean BC document. They'll try to force people to give up their natural gas furnaces. They will criticize natural gas, calling it a fossil fuel in a government document like Clean BC. So they're really trying to, stab themselves, and they need to stop doing it because everybody in BC will eventually suffer under this.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after the break.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Cypress Development Corp is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims, still sticking with Alberta Oil. Andrew Weaver, the leader of the Green Party in BC, the one who holds the balance of power in the legislature, keeps saying that there's no need to build a pipeline to the BC coast because China isn't interested in Canada's heavy oil. Yet Stuart Muir, once again from Resource Works, said right now you can go on Marine Tracker and watch a tanker that has just left the port of Vancouver and is on its way to China carrying Canadian heavy oil. And if there was more pipeline capacity, China would be getting one of those on a frequent basis. So is either, Mr. Weaver or Dr. Weaver either misinformed or deliberately lying to us?
It's a strange thing to have to deal with. I've spoken with Dr. Weaver many times. Very intelligent man, well-spoken, but then he'll say things like this that just defy reason. They defy common sense, facts, and logic. And I don't know why he's saying them, because he must know better. Anybody who can take a look at world markets and see how world economies are evolving and developing will know very well that places like China and eventually India and around the world are hungry for oil and gas. And of course they would want oil coming from Canada. This is how the world functions. It's how the world goes round. And if we have 1 billion people in each of those two vastly, frequently, quickly developing countries, in China and also in India, it stands to reason that they will modernize, and fast. How do you do that? Using things like oil and gas. Where do you get that? Canada has one of the biggest oil reserve deposits on Earth. And of course it would stand to reason they would buy it from us. I think it's for a lot of us of a certain vintage, those of us born in the 70s and grew up in the 80s, it's amazing to a lot of us to see the United States of America now pretty much energy independent. One of the main reasons for that is their natural gas boom. They've embraced the extraction and the sale of their natural resources, and it is benefiting them greatly. It's one of the reasons why their economy is so blisteringly fast right now. And to say that there's no market for it is just incorrect. I mean, if Dr. Weaver wants to eventually somehow harness solar and wind in a more environmentally friendly way that doesn't kill a lot of birds, and we can all store the electricity and store that power and use it in our homes, that's awesome. That's great. I think a lot of people want that eventually in the future. But to defy reason and say that as of right now, in 2019, there's no demand for oil is incorrect, and he should probably stop saying it.
Well, Weaver also claimed, I believe, that craft beer employed more people than oil and gas, and that those jobs would replace oil and gas. Well, is that true, and is that possible?
He must be joking, because most of us who've ever had a conversation with him, you can quickly understand that he's intelligent. So he's either saying this to deliberately cause a red herring, to make you chase it, or to provoke you into a silly argument, or to make you laugh, because that's just fundamentally untrue. Anybody with a grasp of employment statistics and resource statistics in Canada can understand that that's just fundamentally not the case. So I don't know why he keeps saying these things. And again, I think it's just as a form of distraction. And it also, you have to keep in mind that he initially supported, for example, the construction of the Sightsee hydroelectric project in British Columbia, and then vehemently opposed it. So he changed his mind on it. And, if we need the hydroelectricity, fine. We're fine with that. We just want it built as quickly and as efficiently as possible, but we're wincing and holding our breath, worried that it's going to have a huge cost overrun for taxpayers. But what I find strange, as somebody who follows energy, how is it that quite often the same folks who will say in one breath that we need to all switch over to electric power vehicles, we all need one in our driveways, we all need one in our condo shared apartments, are often the same ones who say don't build Sightsee. Where do they expect this hydroelectric power to come from that will be powering not only our vehicles? Keep in mind the Clean BC program that the government has put out now is calling for all of our construction tools, all of our construction vehicles to be somehow powered by electricity. They're talking about backhoes and bulldozers and cranes to be powered by electricity in the future. So where do they think that juice is going to come from? It's not going to be coming from small run-of-river projects, because if we start relying on those niche things, we're going to wind up like Ontario with an energy crisis and people not being able to afford their electricity. So they have to figure out what they want here.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal has received a $1 million grant from the federal government. One of their headliners is Margaret Trudeau, the mother of the current Prime Minister. Does something smell there?
Oh, it always does. You know, it's sad when we see something so obvious. In this case, the mother of the current Prime Minister and of obviously the former wife of the former Prime Minister. That's just obvious, and everybody can see it. What we have a problem with the CTF is this money being paid to Just for Laughs in the first place. We don't think that we need corporate welfare in Canada. That includes oil companies, train companies, jet companies, and comedy festivals. If a festival is that funny or that engaging or enlightening, it should be able to pay for itself, also through corporate sponsorship. You know, this idea that we need all public art paid for by the taxpayer is incorrect. There are beautiful examples of public available art all through the world that is paid for by corporations that put their money there. Corporations often have their own budgets for these sorts of things, and they write them off as a form of humanitarian charity of some form. So if they're so funny, pay for it themselves or get enough corporate sponsorship to cover it. But tax dollars should not be spent on things like this because it's not funny, it makes people mad, and it's a waste of money. If we're so connected and committed to things like transportation and healthcare and education, that's where the money ought to be going. It shouldn't be going to something like Just for Laughs.
Canada contributed over $200 million to Latin American countries to reduce their carbon footprint. Should that money have been spent at home?
You can easily spend that at home, and that way you can spend it at home, strengthen our institutions like education, healthcare, the STEM studies in our university levels, and then export that knowledge using our own energy and natural resources to places like Latin America. That will better enable them to modernize and to update. Because once you sign that money over to another country or a governing body, you don't know how it's being spent. You might as well kiss it goodbye. They might use it well, which would be nice, but you have no control over it anymore. It's better to pay for it yourself here at home if you want to pay it in that direction, and that enables Canadians to make a change and Canadians to make a difference. Otherwise, you're just signing it over and hoping for the best.
Well, spending it at home, didn't they give the third richest family in Canada, the Weston family, $12 million to make their fridges more efficient at their grocery stores?
Isn't that sad? And it was, really from a communications perspective, if I just take off even my CTF hat for now and go back to my director of communication role, that was painful. That was a couple of days off the heels of announcing they were going to force the carbon tax or carbon price or whatever they're calling it nowadays in Ottawa. So a couple days fresh off of that, where they tell everybody from, Alberta to St. John's that they're now having to pay the Canadian carbon tax federally because it's going to save the planet and stop global warming. In the next breath, they hand over money to Loblaws for new fridges as if they couldn't afford it themselves as a multinational corporation. They should be paying for that themselves, frankly. Why is it that Joe and Sally Sixpack in Saskatoon, filling up their Dodge minivan to take their kid to hockey, is paying for new refrigerators for the Westons? It's absurd, and it highlights our point. If you start giving government your money in whatever name possible, could be anything, save the planet, animal welfare, whatever they're calling it, they'll waste it. They'll hand it to their buddies and they'll waste it because that's what government does. Better to keep it in the pockets of regular people.
The Canadian Taxpayers Federation has a job posting. Can you tell us about it?
Oh, I would love to. Thank you for the opportunity. So this is very rare. The CTF doesn't hire often, but when we do, they basically become a member of our team and of our family. So this is a brand new role that has been created, and it is for an investigative reporter. So the CTF wants that journalist who files access to information, ATIPs. We want that journalist who sits up at night filing FOIs, Freedom of Information. If you love digging through FOIs, going through government expenses, tracking where money is going, call us. Go to our website. Our job posting is right there. We've also put it out on journalism job boards. So if you're in the news media right now or you have experience being a journalist, especially as an investigative reporter tracking expenses, we want to hear from you. Because as we know, unfortunately, I was a journalist for 20 years. We know that newsrooms are getting thinner and thinner. This is a sad reality. So we can't to rely on just the mainstream news anymore because, frankly, they don't have the people anymore, which is sad. So we're trying to take on a journalism role in this context. So we want a journalist who does FOIs, who does ATIPs, who can write up reports on expenses and follow the money and get the facts. And if you'd like to join our team, if you're all for a smaller government, more accountability and less waste, please give us a shout. We really want to hear from you.
Kris, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for caring so much about Canada.
My guest has been Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. If you have any questions for Kris, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. And you can find us on Twitter @TalkDigitalNet. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.